Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host this week, Mary Barthelson. Our guests tonight are Lynne Mulston and Ambassador Dennis Hayes of Reston Citizens Association. Lynne began her path towards community activism in 2015 when she became a director on the Reston Citizens Association board. Today she serves as RCA's president and advocates for those issues that come to RCA through the Reston community. As RCA president, Lynne has testified before the Fairfax County Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, and Redevelopment Housing Authority on a broad range of topics spanning local redevelopment and rezoning initiatives. In recent months, she led a community advocacy team in opposition to a casino in Reston and Fairfax County. Lynne, thank you so much for joining us. Before we discuss your work with RCA, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your story. I understand you grew up in New Orleans. What was that like?
Actually, Mary, thank you so much for having me. I'm really pleased to be here. And yeah, growing up in New Orleans was an interesting experience. I think growing up pretty close to Tulane University, you know, we had a sense of what it was like being in New Orleans as a party city, and it really did teach, I think, my sister and I moderation. So our form of entertainment would be to hop on the streetcar and go down to the French Quarter and watch tourists make fools of themselves. So that was our form of entertainment. And, you know, but I mean, growing up in New Orleans really gave me a sense of how a really beautifully planned urban area that's walkable and has amenities available, and how you can get anywhere that you need to get using public transportation. So I didn't have a car until I was 26.
Wow.
So yeah.
And did you end up staying there to go to college as well?
Actually, no. Tulane University was a little too close to home, so I ended up going to Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. So, yeah.
Not too far away?
Not too far away.
And what did you study when you were in college there?
So, that's a good question. I actually started off in art and transferred over to, I woke up in the middle of the night with sweaty palms, and I was dreaming that I was sitting in Jackson Square with a leathering complexion, begging people to let me paint their portraits. And I thought, this is not what I want to do with my life. So I changed my major to accounting, which is a complete opposite, and then ended up moving into marketing. So marketing really was, you know, the left brain, right brain. It was a great fit for me. So my degree is in business administration with a concentration in marketing.
And were you interested at all in community advocacy at that time as well, or did that come later?
That came later.
Okay, but I understand you did have like a long career before joining RCA. I think you were in different industries: healthcare, trade association, technology. Is that what ended up bringing you to Virginia?
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I ended up working in an acute care hospital, and while I was in college, so I kind of put myself through college, working on weekends, you know, and also taking advantage of the student loans. But I worked at a hospital in New Orleans while I was in college, and when I graduated with my degree in marketing, healthcare marketing had not hit in New Orleans yet. So I was able to go and find a job in Athens, Georgia, where I opened a brand new psych and drug addiction hospital. And then it turns out that Larry Lammers, who is in Reston, Virginia, who was the head of a firm called Lammers and Gershon that did the facility prototyping and facility development for Charter Medical, moved me up to Reston. So I went to go work with them, and it was healthcare that brought me up to Reston. And since then, yeah, I moved from healthcare to trade association, then into technology. So I was working with Sprint before they merged with Nextel, and was working in strategic alliances for them, and then ended up going to work with a firm in Canada. And this was probably the most fun job that I had, was working for a firm that made custom covers that go on substation equipment for electrical substations, and it prevented contact with animals. So it would protect animals from being electrocuted from the phase-to-phase or ground-to-phase electrocutions. And then I retired 2 years ago, and so I'm spending 100% of my time now in advocacy.
So I guess your marketing experience has kind of lent itself to your community advocacy. And was that the first issue that you were involved in? Because I know Reston, at least now, it's a very politically active community, and moving there a few decades ago, I feel like so many people have stayed. And so was it different at that time, or was it also like that as well?
Well, I think you're going to be talking with Ambassador Hayes. He and I have very similar stories in terms of what brought us into an advocacy role, and that was, for me, it was in 2015. There was an effort to, unfortunately it was successful, but it was an effort to convert one of the village centers into a residential area. That was Tall Oaks. So I live in the Tall Oaks area, and that was what got me involved in RCA. So I filled out a candidate form, and I will say that we are looking for new board members, so please go to the RCA website and fill out a candidate form. But yeah, I filled out a candidate form and joined, I got invited to join the RCA board, and I've been on the board ever since, and of course, worked my way up through to currently being president.
And can you educate our audience on what RCA's mission is?
Yeah, so RCA is a nonprofit. We're a 501c3, and our primary mission is to uphold the planning principles and the design guidelines that go with what Reston's founding principles are. Our goals are to educate the community, to serve as advocacy and advocacy voice for the community. And we do get involved in a lot of issues that you would see coming through Fairfax County, for example. So we were very involved with the ZMOD, the zoning modification. We were very involved with Parking Reimagined. So there are, Reston-specific issues that of course, citizens will come to us and say, we need help with this, and we as a board will take that up, and we will advocate for the citizens. And then there are also county-wide initiatives that are going to impact Restonians, and we take an active role there as well.
I know that there's sometimes confusion between Reston Association and Reston Citizens Association. The names are very similar, so I can understand the confusion. I mean, I live there, so I know I pay money to one and not the other, but for those who are not familiar, can you explain what the difference is?
Sure. Yeah, so Reston Association is a homeowners association, so they have, we proudly say that Reston Association has some of the best amenities in Fairfax County. Actually, I think in the United States. They're one of the largest homeowners associations. But they do have a staff of over 100 people that are paid. They get dues to help run their organization, and they are primarily focused on the maintenance and modification of the amenities, the pools and the trails and the tennis courts and the facilities that we have in Reston. Whereas Reston Citizens Association, we have no staff. We are all volunteers, and as I said, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we are a nonpartisan advocacy organization in Reston, and we've been we were formed in 1967, so we've been here a long time.
And I understand there's quite a few members. Do you know exactly or approximately how many members there are?
Well, if you talk to Reston Association, they will say that there are 63,000 members, but Reston Association focuses only on the residents that are in the PRC, that are part of the covenanted land of Reston. So they do not cover like Reston Town Center, where our Reston Town Center has their own organization, Homeowners Association. So we represent everyone in small tax district number 5 is what we say. So I would say that it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 66,000 people.
Yeah, that's a very large number. Mm-hmm. So I know that there's quite a few issues that RCA has championed. One of the most recent ones that has gotten a lot of publicity is the effort to bring a casino to Reston or Fairfax County. And I know the RCA had a position on that. Can you share what that position was, or just a brief overview?
Sure. You're going to have to stop me because I will go on about this. Yeah, so when we first learned about this casino initiative that Senator Marsden brought, he is the patron from Burke that brought this bill forward. And the initial language in the bill really specifically targeted Reston. So thanks to Reston Association, they did work with the lobbyists. They were able to get some substitute language in the bill that removed Reston from consideration. Now, what that language did, though, is that it brought the casino to Tyson's Corner. So initially, Reston Citizens Association started a coalition of Reston organizations. It was Reston Strong, Save Our Sunrise, Reston 2020, Rescue Reston, and of course RCA was the umbrella organization. And I was serving as the coordinator for that initiative. Now, when that moved to Tyson's, we said, we are not going to just say, wash our hands of it and say, it doesn't involve us, so we don't need to worry about it. We reached out to our sister organizations in Tyson's, in Great Falls, in Vienna, and other areas close to Tyson's, and started a new coalition called the No Casino Coalition.
So I know there's a lot of interest in the casino, so I want to talk more about that after the break. We will be right back with more from our guest, Lynne Mulston, after our short break. Stick around.
So, I just moved in with his family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that! That's disgusting! Oh, poop already! You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh, no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school. Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host this week, Mary Barthelson. Our guest tonight is Lynne Mulston, Chair of RCA. So before we went to our break, we were talking a little bit about the effort to bring a casino to Fairfax County. I know that you mentioned that Senator Marsden introduced a bill into the General Assembly this year, and there was a shift from Reston to Tysons. Can you recap that a little bit
Sure.
for those who are not as familiar?
Yeah, so Senator Marsden introduced this bill, number one, for an area that he does not represent. So that is really deviating from the norm in terms of Senate bills being introduced. Typically, it would be the senator or the House member that oversees or represents that district. So for him to put forth a bill that pertains to a district that is not his was really kind of out of the norm. And we also found that the senators and the House of Delegates and the supervisor that represent Fairfax County, Reston specifically, not Fairfax, but the Hunter Mill District, were vehemently opposed to a casino. So, that's the stage that's been set. So as we were discussing, the original language in the bill specifically targeted Reston. We knew that language, had their sight set on Reston. So when Reston Association hired a lobbyist to go to Richmond and really worked to help get some substitute language into the bill that removed Reston from consideration, but it put the sights on Tysons. So that was when, we as Reston Citizens Association, we were serving as the umbrella organization for the opposition in Reston. We said, we're going to go to our sister organizations in Tysons, in Great Falls, in Vienna, and that coalition has grown, and we have it's a small group, but we are functional. We're keeping a small profile because we need to be nimble. We need to be able to move fast. So having a group of 7 or 8 people that are working on this new coalition called the No Casino Coalition, and we will be changing the website. So right now the website is still No Reston Casino. We do have a tab on the website that says Take Action Fairfax County, and that's where we have the countywide campaign is running. So right now we have an advocacy page set up using a system called Voter Voice. So we have crafted the email that will go to the person who fills out the form, so it will know who their supervisor is, who their senator, who their delegate, and a copy will go to Chairman McKay. So right now we think it is so important that this bill, well, I forgot to say that the bill did get held over for next year. So it did not advance through the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. So it was passed over. So it will be rearing its ugly head in 2025. So we don't want to see that happen. So right now our campaign, our short-term strategy is to tell the Board of Supervisors that they need to say no. And all of our tactics are kind of feeding into that one goal. So right now we have the advocacy campaign with the email writing. We are attending every Board of Supervisors meeting, and we have speakers that are speaking at the public comment period that is usually on the agenda at 4:30. We have an advertising campaign that we're running thanks to our generous donors. We do have an advertising campaign that brings people into the advocacy site for them to take action.
And
So,
I was following this story the last couple of months. It was like a little bit of like a beach ball going back and forth between everyone, hard to follow. But it was nice to see when that language got removed excluding Reston. But then I think there was like a little bit of panic when we realized, oh, it's still in Fairfax County. And Reston, we are a very active community. So it seems like our activism spread a bit to Tyson's. And I know we have traction and support from Reston elected officials, but have Fairfax County elected officials representing Tyson's or other areas taken stances on it? Did you get traction with any elected officials when you went down to Richmond?
Well, we did get, so we did have, thank you for mentioning the trip to Richmond. We did have a group of folks that went down to Richmond for the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee meeting. I think there were about 30 of us. We had 2 buses. We had one bus from Reston and one from McLean. And that was the other Citizens Association that I was looking for, is McLean is the other one. But yes, we did get some traction from other senators. But I will say that I don't know if folks were able to attend Senator Jennifer Boysko's town hall that was held at McLean High School. But Supervisor Jimmy Bierman is also very vocal in his opposition to a casino, along with Walter Alcorn. And so is, surprisingly, Kathy Smith. So we were very pleased to see that she had stepped up and said that Fairfax County is not the place for a casino.
I think I've also seen Senator Boysko, she's representing Reston, Senator Salim, who's new, he's opposed. Yes. But the others, some of them are a bit quiet on taking a stance yet, so it's hard to know what their position is going to be. And I guess if the state next year, I guess the next session is going to be next January, where we could see this bill pushed forward, it would then come to the county level. So are we expecting any action in the next year before next January, or is there anything that our audience should look out for if they want to follow this issue and be aware of what's going on?
Yes, you know, I would say, you know, please, you know, show up to the Board of Supervisors meetings for the public comment period. We will be handing out T-shirts and no casino bumper stickers. You know, we just want the Board of Supervisors, this right now, this is sitting with them. I will be speaking tomorrow night as the first speaker during the public comment period. We want to fill the seats in the auditorium. It holds 380 people. We want to get that completely filled with 380 folks that, you know, either coming out to support or not, you know, if they want to support a casino or not support the casino. We just want them to come out and, you know, make their voices heard and you know, show a sign of support in numbers.
Yeah, I know this issue has been taking up a lot of your time. I'm sure that there's so much going on with it, but there's other stuff that RCA is working on. Can you share a little bit about what else is on RCA's radar? Sure.
We just finished a complete rewrite of the comprehensive plan for Reston. In previous years, you know, they would do piecemeal, you know, bits and pieces, and you know, take one chapter and redo it, or have a modification 1 or modification 2. It was a complete rewrite of the entire plan, and the Board of Supervisors approved it last October. Well, actually, no, it was in August. It was October that they opened up the opportunity for developers to submit nominations for site-specific plan amendments, otherwise known as SSPAs. So Hunter Mill received, I think, the greatest number of SSPAs. 2 of them, of course, were for the golf courses, and those were, thank goodness for Supervisor Alcorn, those were not moved forward. And there are currently 4 SSPAs that have just been kicked off about a week and a half ago. So we will be watching each of those separately, and then of course next year there will be another set of 4 SSPAs that are a little bit more complicated. So I think they saved the easy ones for first and the harder ones for the second year. And then of course after that 2-year period, they're able to come back in. So the nomination period will reopen. So it reopens every 2 years.
Yeah, that's good to know. Any other Reston issues? I feel like we've always got like 10 things going on.
Yes, and you know that's one of the things that's so great about RCA. You know, we're always we serve as the advocacy arm for the citizens. So if there's something that is happening in Reston that someone is not happy about, we get involved. One example was the Fannie Mae building was recently acquired, that property, and it's zoned for commercial, and the purchasers wanted to get that rezoned for residential like everything else, and the initial application that came in was extremely dense, and it was flowing over into EQC, an environmental quality corridor, or an RPA, a resource protected area. So we were able to work, excuse me, with the planning commissioner, John Carter. And I'll say in Hunter Mill, we are so lucky to have our planning commissioner, John Carter, and Walter Alcorn are just fabulous to work with. And we feel that they do listen. And John Carter worked with the community, and we were able to, and he worked with the developer, and we were able to get that sizing down to something that was a little bit more manageable for Reston. We still think it's a little too dense, but it's still better than the initial application that came through. And yeah, there's always the issue of affordable housing. One of the things that I heard when I attended the kickoff of the SSPA is that there are a lot of young people in Fairfax County that cannot afford to buy a house, and they think that if you just allow build, that it will somehow equate to affordable housing, and these developers want all the profit they can get. So
yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that issue. We do have another guest, so stick around. After the break, we will be joined by Ambassador Dennis Hayes.
Thank you.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Hi, I'm Josh Temple. You might have seen me on TV where I help folks turn their houses into dream homes. But forget construction. Parenting is the toughest job there is. So when you need help or advice, turn to the parenting experts at Boys Town.
I was afraid of that.
Well, guess it's time to get you fixed.
Your pets will start fooling around sooner than you think.
Go on, get out of here!
Accidental litters lead to millions killed in shelters each year. Help prevent more. Fix at month 4.
Food. It nourishes, brings us together, and adds flavor to life. That's why it's important to wash hands, surfaces, and fresh produce. Keep raw meat, poultry, and seafood separate from ready-to-eat foods like fruits and vegetables. And cook to proper temperatures using a food thermometer. Enjoy and refrigerate leftovers within 2 hours. For more tips on safely preparing foods, visit homefoodssafety.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host this week, Mary Barthelson. Our second guest tonight is Ambassador Dennis Hayes. Ambassador Hayes joined the Foreign Service upon leaving university and was first assigned to the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica as a vice consul. He then returned to Washington, where he was an advance man for presidential visits overseas. After a year at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, Ambassador Hayes was twice elected president of the American Foreign Service Association and completed his service as ambassador to the Republic of Suriname. After retiring from the Foreign Service, Ambassador Hayes serves as the executive vice president of a major foreign policy organization. Currently, he is head of research for the Americas for Horizon Engage, focusing on emerging oil and gas. Ambassador Hayes is the immediate past president of the Reston Citizens Association, the chairman of the Fairfax Library Advocates, a member of the Foreign Service Labor Relations Board, a senior fellow of the Joint Forces Staff College. Ambassador Hayes, thank you so much for joining us. You had so much more in your bio that I could have read through.
That's plenty.
But I want to talk a little bit about your background and your career. So was Foreign Service something that you always knew that you wanted to do? Or?
Absolutely not. No, it's a twist of fate, which often comes our way. I was going to be a lawyer. I was all set to go to law school, but I had a couple months. I lived in Alexandria then, or my parents did. And I got a job stuffing envelopes on Capitol Hill, but I took the 810 bus into Washington. And also on the 810 bus was a Foreign Service officer, and we started talking, and he'd tell me these wonderful stories about being in Asmara and Karachi and all these exotic places. And it's a test, it's free, take it, see how it goes. So I did, and I ended up in the Foreign Service. Otherwise, I'd be a divorce attorney in Orlando right now. But I'm happy with the choices I made.
So where'd you end up going to college?
Undergrad, University of Florida.
Okay.
That's the gator here, you see.
Yeah. So you just happened to meet this person on a bus?
Correct. If I had taken the bus before or the bus after, as I said, it would have changed my life completely.
And I know you first served in Jamaica.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about your career progression from there? Because there were so many different steps that you took, and I know you won some awards as well.
Well, the great thing about the Foreign Service, or what I think is a great thing, is that your life changes every 2 or 3 years. I'm in Jamaica, then I'm in the heart of Africa, I'm in Europe, Asia. You go around, you're speaking different languages, you meet incredible people, and so for me, that's an exciting thing. I mean, not everybody likes it, because part of that also is you're dealing with very rudimentary living conditions in many places, medical concerns, I mean, all of these things that are out there. But all in all, I think the Foreign Service is one. I still go around, I talk to students, and I tell them, if this sounds good to you, then you should certainly pursue it, because it's a wonderful career.
What were some of your career highlights?
Highlights. You could have asked the other way around.
I'll ask you in a minute.
Well, let me start. Usually, most Foreign Service officers will say their first and their last post are the most kind of ones that really stick out in their memory. To be a young vice consul in Jamaica in those days, and again, Jamaica, it wasn't all in the Grove Beach Village back then. Kingston is a big city with lots of problems, and so just living in the community, working with people. But I got to meet Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and all the reggae guys, because they all wanted to come see me, because I was the guy who granted visas in those days. So it was a real eye-opener to different parts of the world, and I think I benefited from it. Being an ambassador, it's good to be the ambassador, first off. But one of the things I really like about it is everybody in the country wants to talk to you. They want to tell you their story, from an unemployed dock worker to the president. They all want the American representative to understand something about the life that they live, what's important to them, how they see a future, what they want for their children. And so, again, I think it's a great feeling to have.
You mentioned issuing visas.
Yes.
What are some of the responsibilities of those roles that you had?
Well, under U.S. law, the determination of a visa, whether someone is authorized legally to come into the country or not, depends 100% on the consul. That's it. They just have to convince me that they merit coming in. In many places of the world, and certainly as we see today, a lot of people want to come to America. I mean, literally billions would come if they had the opportunity. One of the tough parts in Jamaica when I was there is I would go home at 7 o'clock at night and there'd be 200 people lined up to come see me the next morning already. They were going to spend the night there standing in a line. And how you determine sort of, you know, who you feel you should come and who you feel for other reasons. And we have checks, you know, if they have criminal record, medical, these sorts of things to do that. But it comes down to judgment, and sometimes you're wrong. You know, I certainly made my share of mistakes. Looking back, there are people I wish I had given visa to, and there's others when I'm going, what the hell was I thinking? How did that person ever get through? But you know, that's how it's said, and I really don't know how you do it otherwise.
What are some of the services that U.S. embassies provide to U.S. citizens overseas?
Well, as the American Embassy, I mean, our primary responsibility is to be a two-way portal. You know, we interpret the wishes, the desires, the history, the experience of the country, and try to relay that back to Washington and to the Congress and others. And at the same time, we're trying to explain the role of the United States to the people of that country. Specifically with American citizens, you know, it's everything from a lost passport to a medical injury or an emergency or something. You know, Lord knows there are enough natural disasters, and let me tell you, there's Americans everywhere. You go out in the middle of the desert, there's an American out there. Out in the little tiny speck of the Pacific, there's Americans there. So anything that happens anywhere, any volcano, any tsunami, there's going to be people that we need to take care of, and that's our job. Is we have to try to make sure they're safe. If they need to be repatriated back to the United States, we do those sorts of things too. And so, you know, as I said, it's different. Every day it's something different.
And so you mentioned some of the challenges that you've seen in the places that you've traveled to. Yeah. And you've had a long career in this area. So can you share what some of the bigger challenges are that you've tackled in your career?
Well, I mean, you deal with coups, revolutions, riots, these sorts of things. Sometimes those are exciting, you know, because that gives you something to work on and try to get convey back to Washington. But particularly in the early part of my career, when I was in Burundi in Central Africa, for instance, we had a coup, and it was a good coup because the cousin who came in and took power was better than the cousin who went out. And I'll tell you a story about that quickly. The cousin who was out in the beginning was home at sleep. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, the army guys came to him and they said, "We have a question for you. Would you like to be the president of the country, or would you like us to kill you?" And he, you know, said, "What was that first option?" and decided to do it. And before you knew it, he was the president of the country. And he was a good guy. And he had free and fair elections, and he improved the human rights situation. So in all, I mean, not every coup goes bad. Some are actually plus. But you're always worrying about that. And again, what's the first thing we think about? American citizens. I mean, we had people that were living on little farms, American citizens living up on little farms in the middle of nowhere. And how do you get a hold of them? In those days, there was no cell phones, so we had a radio system. But you know, that doesn't always work.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I feel like I'd probably rather be the one watching all of this happen on Netflix after it's already happened, and we know things have worked out. But I'm sure it was very exciting to work on those things in the moment.
And rewarding when you can actually do something for somebody.
Did your professional experience lead into your community advocacy interest?
Indirectly, I would say. You know, the thing that I saw, and most of my career was what we would call developing world. You know, I mean, some of my colleagues like to go to London and Paris, and yes, I'd like to go to London and Paris, but work-wise, the interesting place is more the countries that are just getting together, just figuring out where they want to go and everything. And what I gathered from there is that things happen, and most things happen because somebody makes them happen. And if you sit back and you just ignore everything that's going around you, then stuff's going to happen to you. You know? I mean, and you don't have any role in it at that point. There is a possibility, certainly in America, we take this for granted, but we don't actually act on it as much as we should, is you have a chance to get out and affect how your life, how your children's life is going to be. That's a precious thing, and we need to protect that. But I would say I pulled that because I saw instances where populations felt they had no way to influence what happened to them, and that's sad. Tragic even.
And what was the first issue that got you involved at a local level in Fairfax County?
Outrage was you may remember, about 10 years ago, there was a whole series of stories about library books being tossed into dumpsters. I mean, thousands of library books. And many of them, I don't know if classics is the right word, but I mean, books that probably had value because they were a little old maybe, but they were still books and they were still there. And there was this downsizing going on. And to me, I found that outrageous. You know, Andrew Carnegie said the one thing a community can do to best serve its people is to build a library. It's a spring that never runs dry in the desert. And libraries are unique in our system, I think. I don't care who you are. If you're rich, you're poor, you're black, you're white, you're homeless, it doesn't matter. The library is there for you. And if you go into any library in this county or anywhere else, you're going to see people at internet, you know, the computers. It's the only chance that they ever have to be on a computer. And what I get excited about, and when I'm pushing hard, and you'll hear from me on other occasions, is libraries are more than just books. You know, I love books, but they're more than just books. And there's no reason we can't have studios like this, do podcasts, maker things. You know, the imagination is the limit.
I feel like I've learned quite a bit growing up in Fairfax County from a lot of immigrants who have moved here from developing societies. And they really taught me how much it takes to form a community that functions and takes care of its citizens. So they've inspired me to be a lot more active.
Excellent.
And
Thank you.
I feel like I landed in the right place in Reston with everyone being so involved.
Yeah, we're a activist and sometimes cranky community, yes.
Yes, we definitely can be. And I know that you were president of RCA.
Yes.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about that after the break.
Okay.
But I guess it was this library issue that first inspired you to get involved in RCA.
And then you get sucked in, and then you find out that there's another issue you care about, and another issue after that. And before you know it, you're going like, what, I'm the president now? How did that happen? And see, my one best accomplishment is I got Lynne to replace me.
Yes, and I'd like to talk more about that after the break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after a short break for more discussion with Ambassador Dennis Hayes.
Nice going, Spencer! I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go. See ya. Remember me and your well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host this week, Mary Barthelson. We are joined by Ambassador Dennis Hayes. Thank you again for being here with us. Before the break, we were talking about the issue of libraries in the county and how that kind of transitioned you from your foreign service to your local service here. And we haven't shared the story yet about how you became RCA president. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, a little bit. Always happy to. Again, as I mentioned, it was the libraries that first got me involved in it, and then, as I also mentioned, it tends to other issues come up, and you know, one of the things that I think we've learned or relearned, because I suspect our predecessors 15, 20 years ago knew this, is you need to prepare ahead of time. You need to get, because what normally happens is a developer or a county official will have something they want to do. Okay, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. But 3 years later, when they're actually prepared to implement it, is when we find out. And so as a result, we're always playing catch up. So when we first started doing this, we were getting beaten every time, just crushed. It was painful, painful. But we've learned now to get in early enough and with rational arguments, and you know, some things we agree with. I mean, some things we're happy to see. Others we feel okay, but we need to do this or that in order to make it better. And so we have a much higher success rate than we did even 5 or 10 years ago. Now, how I got to be president, it was kind of like my predecessor said, Dennis, how about being president? And I said, well, who else you got? And he said, we got you. And so here I am. There I was and all. So it worked out. I loved it. And I feel, again, I would like to see more people compete or get into these issues and all. And trust me, there are plenty of issues, and there are plenty of issues which will directly affect the life of everybody in Reston, everybody in Fairfax County. And if you don't get informed and educate yourself and decide whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, then you take what you get.
It's always nice to be voluntold to
Yes,
do something.
Exactly.
What year was that?
That would have been about 2015, 16.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were president for a few years.
4 years, yes.
4 years?
Yeah.
And what were some of the issues that you tackled as RCA at that time?
Well, a lot of them are recurring. I mean, land use is a big issue here. The library, of course. There were a number of issues that came up with the library during this time period. And mostly, you know, we tried, again, to form relationships. For the most part, we have pretty good relationships with the county officials. Not everybody, but with most of them, we do. And so it becomes a collaborative effort because we live here, and we want it to be a better place. And so we try to work that way. But we are insistent that the community, and you know, it's not me and just Lynn, it's everybody that lives there. We live here, you know, and we pay our taxes, and we have our kids in school, and we do all these things, so we should have a voice. And we work, that's what RCA does. We work to make sure we have a voice.
And I know that you're still active in RCA to an extent,
Yes.
and I believe that you also supported the no casino effort. So
Yes.
can you share what your position was on that and what's going on with that?
Yeah. Yeah, this was something that came out of nowhere. Again, our intelligence network failed us on this one because we didn't see it coming, but boom, there it was. So we had to act quickly in order to do that. You know, I'm fairly neutral on the concept of gambling itself. I mean, I'm not like hardcore opposed to it or anything. I did spend a lot of time a few years ago going out to Las Vegas because I was working on the largest mass defection of athletes or artists from a communist country. We brought a whole dance troupe from Cuba and moved them over to Las Vegas, which was another time for another story, but that was interesting. But you know, most people, you think casinos, you think James Bond, black tie and all that. And the reality, of course, it's your grandmother, you know, at a slot machine, spending Social Security funds. And the thing that why I don't like a casino here is because it's a very aggressive tax. It takes money out of the pockets of the people who can least afford it in many cases. And so to say, well, we're getting money and we're getting a little bit of money for schools, let's say, okay, that's nice. But that little bit of money is actually this much money that's coming out of the pockets of our citizens, our fellow citizens. So I don't think it's economically, I don't think it's a good deal for the county. And the law in Virginia pictured casinos being formed in rural areas that were depressed, where the coal mine had shut down and families just don't have any other work. That's where the state wanted to put these. So this putting it here in Fairfax is something new, and I don't know if Lynn mentioned, but we believe somewhere around $1.2 million has been spread around to politicians to support this. We don't have $1.2 million. What we got is us. And we need to speak up and let people know what we think about it. Simple as that.
Yes, and I know you also have thoughts on quite a few other issues.
Too many.
Why do you think that our audience should care so much about local politics?
Well, again, going back to Pericles, it was you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you, and all of the things. I mean, we live in a society which is changing all the time. I go back and I've been around long enough to remember cornfields inside the Beltway. I mean, stuff is going on, and for the most part, it's good. And we're not by any means opposed to development. We're opposed to bad development here, and a casino falls into that category of being bad development. It's not right for Fairfax County, and we think it should go somewhere else, if anywhere. But my larger concern is you will have, it's an absolute guarantee that there will be people who go bankrupt, who can't pay the rent, who aren't able to financially support themselves. Absolutely, 100% guarantee, and that's a problem.
And do you think that we need more community advocacy groups?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Some people get excited about one issue, and that's the issue that they care about, and that's fine. Others, like in RCA, we deal. And most of the people who come to RCA and become our board members, it's because, like Lynn, like myself, there was one thing that did this. Look, I've lived in Fairfax County off and on in my foreign service career. I'd go overseas, I'd come back, overseas and come back, and everything. When I was younger, I had small kids, career. It's like, I can't be bothered. I don't have time to do all this. So there's a lot of people with gray hair now that do this, but we encourage younger people to come in too, because they're going to be here for the next 40 or 50 years. So shouldn't they have a say in what happens to them?
I definitely think so as well. So I know that you've talked about the importance of libraries. Is there any new things going on with the libraries? Any new issues?
Well, in Reston, we're supposed to have a new library. The old one has some structural issues and everything, and it needs to be bigger. We actually should have 2 new libraries in Reston. We're not going to get that, so we settled for one good one. We're working with our supervisor, who has also been very supportive, Supervisor Alcorn, with respect to libraries. But it's money. I mean, we have to have, it's millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars to build a new library. And I would like to see that library have the sorts of things that I talked about earlier. Have a recording studio, have a place with 3D manufacturing. I mean, all of this stuff can and should be in the new libraries of the second half of the 21st century.
And I know that Reston's library, I believe it's a regional library,
yes,
so it doesn't just serve Reston, it also serves the surrounding area.
Yeah, we're basically the northwest corner of Fairfax is that library. And pre-pandemic, we would have 1,000 people a day, average, coming into the library. And some people, as I said, that's really their lifeline to the outside world. And so we need to protect that.
I completely agree with that. And another topic that you've mentioned is restricting parking.
Yes.
And why is that a bad idea?
It's a terrible idea, and let me tell you why. Because the parking, it's one thing if you say, well, you know, there's a strip mall and it's got some extra space that nobody needs, fine. I don't have a strong opinion on that. But where this is hitting is it's going, and it's not going to affect me because I live in a single family home and I have a driveway, so I can park my car there without a problem. Where this impacts is people who are living in apartments and townhouses communities. I have 3 daughters. At various times they've lived in a bunch of different apartment and townhouse communities, and I would always spend 20 minutes driving around trying to find a parking space and ending up in a strip mall 1.5 miles away and walking in. You know, it's great to talk about how we will all bike in the future or we will walk and everything, but you're not carrying the groceries back on a rainy, cold February day and everything. You need a car, and it's going to stay that way for the next 50 years. So we need, if you say we're taking away parking, where do the cars go? Well, they go into the other neighborhoods. They park illegally. They do all these other things. So you're not solving a problem. You're just creating different problems. So again, we don't have to go crazy, but it's easy. You can figure out if you have so many townhouses, and particularly now we have many townhouses that have more than one family, you know, just because of the economics and stuff. That doesn't mean they only have one car. They have multiple cars. Where do they go?
And I know that you also had thoughts about the college football portal. So we do have about 2 minutes left. So I wanted you to share what that is, because when you mentioned it, I was not familiar with what it is.
All right. Well, as you know, I'm a Gator, Florida Gator, and all. We're going to live off Tim Tebow for another 50 years and all. But nevertheless, I mean, one of the reasons I follow college football more than I follow professional football is just I think it's a better game, more excitement, you can get, you know, school spirit and these sorts of things. The portal is something that's new now, but basically says an athlete can transfer from one school to another. And in the years past, that could be done, but you had to sit out for a year and other things. Now you can just go directly to these. So I'm, for instance, I was a big fan of a Gator running back named Etienne this past year. So now I find out in the portal he's going to be playing for Georgia. So I have to hate him now. I mean, come on. I like the guy, and now he's playing for Georgia. So I mean, this is a problem. But what I think is going to happen is all the best players will migrate to the top 15 or so schools. The Ohio States, the Michigans, the Floridas, the Alabamas. Every other school suffers and all. And I think that it's not the same game then. It's just not. They're pros at that point.
Yeah, I'm not someone who really follows sports at all. So maybe I'll stick to following the local politics. I definitely like...
That's a full contact sport also.
Absolutely. Very competitive, lots going on, never a dull day at all. So I'll be sure to follow along what happens with the casino and all the other issues happening across the county and in Reston, and encourage our audience to also get involved and have their voices heard. Thank you so much for being here and talking with us. That's all for tonight. Be sure to tune in next week and have a wonderful evening.
Indeed. Thank you very much.